everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!
We are coming to you on a Thursday this week, a little bit earlier than we've been normally doing it, and because we got so much to get into and talk about here on the show. We've got some new trailers that'll be fun to discuss. We got some Penguin updates, maybe a season 2 on the horizon, some Agatha All Along wrap-up stuff, and Marvel stuff. But of course, the big news today is we're recording this, the Simon Kinberg possible trilogy that is going to happen here for Star Wars. We're going to talk about all of this on this particular episode of the Geek Buddies. I am the Outlaw John Roker, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer, producer of animated TV shows and movies, and I am tired.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, and I'm currently recording this from my iPad because the camera on my Mac doesn't want to work. So we are going to test how long the iPad battery actually lasts.
Oh my God, there's a battery issue? I mean, you can plug these in. All right, well.
I got the mic plugged in. I don't know what you want.
It's too much. So yeah, we have all of that happening in this particular episode. Of course, you know, we're not gonna ignore the elephant in the room, but we're gonna soldier on and entertain all of you as best as we can.
I have a name, and my name is Michael.
Please, if any of this is the elephant, it's me. There's so much that we're gonna get into here. We hopefully will entertain you. For those of you who are having a tough week, hopefully we put a smile on your face and bring some joy to your life in the uniquely interesting way that we do it on the Geek Buddies, for sure. And the way it works is each of us brings up a geek news item. We take a couple of breaks and then dive in to our main news item, and that is absolutely the Simon Kinberg story. But let's start off with this, gentlemen. We got to get into it. You know, this weekend is the finale of this guy, the Penguin. I love this picture. I couldn't help but put it up here. The finale is happening this weekend. If you notice the bat signal standing in for his eyebrows, that's also a really nice piece of the artwork. But the Penguin finale has happened this weekend. We'll be covering it, of course. But there has now been this push here for some more Penguin possibilities and a season 2. In a new interview with showrunner Lauren LaFranc on The Direct, talking about the Penguin and talking about a possibility of a season 2, she said, I mean, we put it all out on the table. I think that in order to do a second season, we have to feel like we can top ourselves. We have to feel like there's something more to really dig into. I mean, I really care about all these characters, even if they're terrible people. And she said it's been a joy to write them, even though they're twisted and complicated. I think Gotham City is just a fun sandbox to play in, and I'd love to keep playing in it, but I think it just has to be the right thing. We should never do anything just to do it. And Matt Reeves talked about more of what may be coming here as well. Let me pull that picture down so you can see our pretty faces. And Matt Reeves said more about this as well. He said, we have been talking about doing other shows in terms of not just the Penguin, but other shows in the Reeves verse of DC. I wanted to make sure that we didn't do the origin tale, which so many of other series have done, which he's talking about the Penguin. I think the idea of being able to put a lens on these characters is a really exciting idea. It's about cities and their dysfunction and the world and its dysfunction, which is what Batman stories are all about. And they're all about Gotham being a place that should be better. Oh, that sounds interesting. And you can have the experience of this almost novelistic epic crime saga and get these separate experiences. So we've heard GCPD, we've heard the Arkham Asylum series. We hear that they're massaging those things and revamping it and reevaluating them. And now the possibility of a Penguin season 2 seems to be building. Of course, this season building to the Batman part 2. So, Mike, what are your thoughts when you hear this stuff from Lauren LaFranc and you hear this stuff from Matt Reeves? Do you think we're expanding even farther and creating like a mini Reeves verse underneath the James Gunn verse? What's your thoughts?
I think a mini Reeves verse makes sense. I don't know that a season 2 of the Penguin makes sense. Maybe it does. I don't know. But like, I'd say even what everyone is saying is, you know, and I'm hearing a lot of rumors about Barry Keoghan being the villain in the third Batman movie, but maybe he gets, like, maybe the Joker gets the Penguin treatment between movie. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces to this, but, you know, Oswald Oz was established in the Batman. We have this story that really picks up right after the Batman with the flood that the Riddler caused. And I think part of the challenge of figuring out a Penguin season 2 is, obviously they know what's going to happen in the Batman 2, like Matt Reeves is making it, but is that as natural a segue into a season 2 of the Penguin would also in effect have to be a continuation of the Batman 2, like the way it's all going to time out. So if there was a Oz, however Oz ends up at the end of the season finale, let's assume he has taken over organized crime in Gotham City, and then the Batman, we're going to get to see Oz running organized crime. Well, what happens at the end of the Batman, and does that make sense for the Penguin? Whereas the Barry Keoghan of it all, like, if we know that the Joker is going to be the villain in the third Batman movie, which is just what's rumored, I don't know that that's for sure or not, but let's assume it is, then maybe it makes more sense that he gets that that treatment on HBO Max, and we spend 10 episodes really establishing this character and how he came to be in Arkham, or his first encounter with the Batman. Like, so I think that the idea that they're going to continue the Matt Reeves verse between the movies, the 3 movies, and whatever they can fit into the creative roadmap makes a lot of sense. But as much as I'm loving these characters, I don't know that they necessarily are going to warrant a second season, because there's a lot of other moving pieces creatively, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Shannon, I mean, clearly you believe no second season of Penguin will include Victor. What do you think? Do you think we'll have a second season of the Penguin? Do you want to see more Batman spin-off shows that are the Reeves verse approach to Batman? What are your thoughts? Do you think that's all coming, a fiefdom within the overall kingdom here of James Gunn and the DCU?
Well, I think anytime they take a unique swing like this, which is you take a supporting character and decide to do their own series, and it has reaped such good results. The concept, I think, is alive and well. I do agree with Vogel. Like, it depends on what happens in the Batman Part 2 to decide whether or not there's a Penguin Season 2. Because this whole series has been about his ascendance to sort of the top of Gotham's underworld. Like, what is the story after that? And obviously, like, coming out of the Batman, they knew that the world was rich with story possibilities that didn't necessarily have to include Bruce Wayne, because they did have that GCPD show, that Gotham Central type show that they were going to do. They did have the Arkham show that they were going to do, that both, cooled off. So it kind of just depends. Like, based off of the movie, based off of the Penguin, I don't know what other storyline you kind of spin off of based off of that. I mean, looking at the Batman, when they said they were going to do a Penguin series, because Colin Farrell was so incredible, it's like, yeah, that makes total sense. I still think there's a world where that Gotham Central idea works, because again, based off the comic, Gotham Central is just such an intriguing story. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think we've all kind of heard, and I don't know if these rumors are supported by anything. The whole idea that the Court of Owls would be potentially, one of the possible antagonists. And because the Penguin has been such about class warfare, and knowing that the Court of Owls are so high, they're actually the top. I'll be curious to see. It's a lot of what ifs. And I think Lauren LaFranc actually said the exact correct thing. Like, we don't want to do it just to do it. Like, we want to make sure that we have a story to tell. So coming out of the first season of the Penguin, coming out of the Batman Part 2, if there's a story to tell, yeah, absolutely, they should do it.
And she also said, I really like playing in that Gotham City sandbox. She didn't necessarily say, I like playing in the Sophia Falcone Oz Cobb sandbox, like, which I'm sure she did, but like, I think she's maybe setting herself up a little bit too, to be like, hey, we're a great team here. Even if you're going to go to this character or you're going to go to GCPD, like, I really like this universe. Let me continue playing in it. And I'd be fine with that. I mean, I do think if they continue these TV series, I mean, look, and we've said this on our reviews, I get why there's no Batman in the Penguin, and I accept that he's not showing up in the Penguin. And I think that they're giving us so many rich character beats with these characters. And as soon as Batman comes in the Batmobile, like, he's going to take over the show. So I am okay with the fact that he's not going to show up, even though by the end of this past episode, it starts to defy logic. But if they continue with this method of storytelling, which I hope they do, you are going to run into a thing at some point where you're like, okay, so Batman just never shows up on all the stuff that happens on. If it's on Max, there's no Batman. There's only so many times you can go to that. I'm okay that they're going to it now, but I think eventually you're going to have to be like, all right, we got to figure this out.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And at some point, you've got to figure out if Pattinson's going to stick around playing the Batman, and if he is, if you're going to keep doing these, because in essence, you could do origin stories. I mean, a Poison Ivy origin story under Lauren LaFranc's leadership, that would be fascinating, right? So interesting. A Mr. Freeze, a Joker one. Like, there's all kinds of possibilities where she may even become like a mini fiefdom underneath the Matt Reeves fiefdom. That could be really interesting as well, where she has her own kind of approach to things. But you're right, Mike. Eventually, the Batman has to show up. And eventually, you have to line all this stuff up, and it becomes an own mini universe. And that becomes a lot to carry on when you've got James Gunn doing a whole other thing over here.
Right.
It's a lot to ask all around. But yeah,
it's
I mean,
a lot
I'd
to
love
ask,
to
but
see
also
it.
if audiences are there for it, it's good.
Yeah,
I mean, we talk so much
very
about,
true.
is this too confusing for your average audience? Is that? Like, there's a lot of like, oh, well, our audience is going to get this. And I think what we've really gotten out of the success of Agatha All Along, the success of The Penguin, audiences are fine to do their homework if they're excited about it.
Yes,
audiences are not confused if they like what they're watching. Like audiences clearly have an appetite for Batman stories with or without Batman in them, told in this Matt Reeves universe. Yeah. Like that is clearly the message that Warner Brothers and Max are getting. And so, keep doing it. Even if you are planning your Brave and the Bold movie for the Gunn universe, where we're going to see Bruce Wayne and Damian, like, give us more of this. And there are things like, we know from the deleted scenes of the Batman that Joker's already in Arkham and he's in a cell next to Edward Nygma. And so, like, give me that story. Give me Robert Pattinson in the very first episode of a Joker series and show me him bringing Joker into Arkham before the events of the Batman, and then let me do an entire series of seeing Joker in Arkham where there's no like, I don't, there's lots of ways you could do it that would dovetail into the stories they want to tell that could be really interesting.
And it is a little known fact that Lauren LaFranc is actually short for Lauren LaFranchise.
How long? How long did you have that one?
I mean, too long. It's a spelling joke. I can't say Lauren LaFranc, guys.
Well, and the other element of this is Pattinson, right? And some of you who watch our show may not know this, but there is still, even though, movie actors appear on TV, there's still a little thing there where you have to negotiate that, and what's the money, and what can you quote, and what's the situation, and how many appearances can they do? There's a lot that goes into the contract on something like that. So and I think hopefully Pattinson sees the series that is The Penguin and goes, okay, I'm a little more open to appearing on these, possibly as Batman in certain scenes, coming in certain moments. How do I make that work? But the reality may be that he may not want to do that. And that's where we're back to Michael's point, is that at some point, he either shows up or he doesn't, but you're suspending the disbelief way too much for people to not have him show up with all this stuff going on at some point. I mean, especially the explosion in the last episode. I mean, there's no reason that shouldn't have triggered his appearance. And we'll see.
But there are other things. Like, I mean, if you read the GCPD comic.
Or Jim Gordon, right? Or Jim Gordon. Like, where's been Jim Gordon?
Well, but that's what I'm saying, though, is like, Jeffrey Wright does TV, did Westworld. I think that
a
GCPD comic, if you end the second Batman movie, depending on the GCPD's relationship with Batman, depending on a lot of things, Batman did show up in the GCPD. I can't say it. He did show up in that comic book, but not very often. I mean, a big part of that show was, what is it like being a cop in a universe that has a Batman? And in that way, they might be able to do a series where you do sidestep the Batman issue, because they're picking up the pieces. Like, the cops show up after Batman is gone. The cops have to deal with this thing that Batman left them. And so there's ways that you can also, the Penguin made a very specific choice to be like, we're telling the story about these people and we're just not even touching the Batman of it all. Right. And when I say you can't always go back to that, well, John's absolutely right. you might want a Robert Pattinson. You might not be able to afford a Robert Pattinson. He might not want to do it. There might be 1,000 different issues. In which case, there are still ways to tell a story set in Gotham City where Batman is a presence without having Batman be a part of the series. So I think that's just, if they're going to continue this, and again, to be clear, I hope they do. I'm very much a fan of this show. So I want them to continue it, but I do think that's something they're going to have to take into consideration if they continue down this road.
I mean, the other way out is...
Victor is not going to be the hero of the Batman TV shows.
How did you know?
I know how you think. I was like, I got there like 5 seconds ago. I was like, John is going to say that if Victor becomes a hero at the end of the Penguin, he can be the hero of the series. No, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
I hate you. I hate you so much. It's so exactly what I was thinking. Anyway, all right. Well, let's take a break here. On the other side, we'll talk a little bit more superhero stuff. But certainly, all three of us, and all of you watching, I'm sure will keep tabs and wondering where we're going next in the Reeves verse of DC. But don't forget our finale. The finale is happening this weekend, but we will be covering it on Tuesday of next week, our review. So just letting you guys know, or at least right now, that's the schedule, but we'll certainly let you know for sure what's going to happen. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back right after this. Do, 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 do. Ooh, 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 ooh. You know, the Academy would not allow that score to be nominated now, I guess, because, it's not enough. All right, Michael, your thought. That's a Dune 2 reference. Michael, you've got our next thing. What do we got going on here, man?
I do. Well, if you are anything like me, you need something to get through this week. And unfortunately, given the way the schedules worked out, we didn't get any new episodes of Agatha All Along on a week when we all really could have used a new episode of Agatha All Along. So that was a double bummer. No Agatha, not the worst thing that happened this week, but maybe a close second. That being said, a lot of information is coming out. Jacques Schaefer has been doing the interview circuit. A lot of things have been said. So we do have what we will call tidbits of the Witch's Road. We got a couple little tidbits here and there, just some fun stuff to go through as we are missing our favorite witch. Jacques Schaefer's kind of dropped a lot of little breadcrumbs for us over the past couple days. A lot of people were hoping that Billy's boyfriend Eddie might be a stand-in for Teddy, who is Billy's boyfriend in the comics. And Jacques Schaefer put that to bed, said early on they did actually discuss having this character be Teddy, who is Hulkling in the comics. Yeah. But ultimately, Marvel decided not to have him be Hulkling, and that was not part of the plans that they wanted. So the Eddie name actually is because there is someone who's important to the writer's room named Eddie. So it was a tribute to somebody that they cared about. But no, so we still have no Hulkling in the universe. I've seen a lot of you people talk about Scar at the end of She-Hulk, and not that Scar is not a great guy, but he is not Hulkling. Hulkling isn't even a Hulk. So, just a little fun tidbit there for all of the Young Avengers fans, since really it's Teddy who is the only one left for the Young Avengers bingo card, really. Also, we all love Marvel post-credit sequences, and we got one for WandaVision, and we did not get one for Agatha, but Jacques Schaefer said she actually wrote a lot of sequences. The two that she called out by name, one was our favorite Jen Kale going and hunting down the guy that bound her, or had Agatha bind her technically. And one was Rio showing up and following Agatha and Billy out of the basement on their way to find Teddy. So her still being a presence. Speaking of Agatha, also a little tidbit that I'm speaking of Rio, they also mentioned that when they were casting Nick Scratch, they were looking for someone that looked a little bit like Aubrey Plaza. So when we think about the parentage of young Nick Scratch, I think that gives a good bit of an answer on who Nick Scratch's parents both are plural. What else? And then in general, a lot of really good it's in the Hollywood Reporter gave an interview with her, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there, but a lot of talk about why they didn't bring Wanda back at the end of it as well. And as Johnny said, Jacques Schaefer says the same thing. At the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to budgets and scheduling and getting certain people in there. But you said even beyond that, Even though we all want those happy endings, and they did write a version early on that did have more of a happy ending for Billy's journey, whether that was him meeting Tommy or whatever, they liked sort of keeping the focus on Agatha. Bringing Wanda in at the end would have upset things, and they kind of liked where it ended, leaving it more open-ended. And speaking of Tommy, when people asked, when Hollywood Reporter asked her if that was indeed the Tommy and that was where we were going to pick things up in the Marvel Universe, she said she hopes so. That's what they were thinking of, but she doesn't get to make those decisions. Kevin Feige does. So I am sure they will pick up those threads, but a lot of really fun tidbits of information about what goes into the making of Agatha. And gentlemen, anything there that pops out to you that is of interest to you or gets you excited about what's coming next, or just gets you excited about revisiting our favorite Witch's Road?
I mean, for me, because I went back and started reading the Children's Crusade arc of with the Young Avengers, and like it would have been fun for Eddie to have been Teddy, but at this point Billy hasn't been introduced to that super world yet. He's kind of still on the outside, and that was the point of the show, was him embracing this identity. And as much as I've read of the Young Avengers, I've never gotten to the part where where and how they met.
Well, they actually met. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point, because if Billy and Eddie, if Eddie was like, "I love you," and Billy's like, "Well, I have to tell you, I'm really the Scarlet Witch's son," and Eddie turned around and said, "Well, I have to tell you, I'm half Kree and half Skrull," that might be a bit much. They actually came together in the Young Avengers comic when Iron Lad, who is the one who formed the Young Avengers, who was really a young version of Kang, and it's very confusing, and I don't want to get into it. But when he brought together the Young Avengers, that's actually how Billy and Teddy met. So they were brought together. So it's a really good point that it would have been maybe a bit too coincidental.
And the post-credit sequence, I was actually disappointed that we didn't get one.
Oh, okay.
Of the ones that you threw out, Rio following Agatha and Billy, to me that seems, if this show, as of right now, it seems like it might get a second season. Like that seems like the most reasonable one. Like the Jen thing, going after the guy, like, yeah, that would have been fine. But ultimately, where the second season of the show is going to go is going to be around that main trio. And yeah, I mean, in terms of how and when we meet Tommy, man, that's a good question. That's a really, really good question. Is this something that happens before the multiverse saga ends? I mean,
no,
you don't think so?
Well, we know all the Marvel shows that are coming out next year. We've seen the trailer. Yeah. We talked about it on last week's show. Like, we know the Marvel shows that are coming out, and Vision Quest isn't until 2026 at the earliest. And I think Vision Quest, to me, is the earliest possible place where we're going to see this happen.
Yeah.
And even then, like, you were saying, it looks like maybe Agatha will get a second season. Aside from Loki and What If, I mean, Marvel shows don't get second seasons. They continue on in different areas. So Agatha might be I think right now they're trying to figure that out. Either they've placed Vision Quest is where this is going to be a part of the show, or Terry Matalas is doing his own thing with Vision Quest, and that's going to end. And then there's going to be an Agatha season 2, or a Wiccan series, or a Children's Crusade, or, their adaptation of the Children's Crusade. Like, maybe the Young Avengers introduction in the Marvel Universe is an adaptation of the Children's Crusade, whether that is a post-Secret Wars movie that comes out, Young Avengers Children's Crusade, or it is a Disney Plus TV series. So I think there's lots of options, but I don't think any of those options, just from a scheduling standpoint, happen before Secret Wars.
I think for me, looking at all this stuff, what I come down to is they made all the right decisions, in my opinion. Of course, I don't negate Shannon's desire for a post-credit sequence, but I personally like that this was bringing us back to the beginning in a way where it was a standalone that certainly had connections to the overall MCU, but they were not overtly pointed out, or there wasn't a big neon sign showing you this stuff. It was very much its own universe and what it was doing. And yes, was it a universe that we introduced through WandaVision? Absolutely. Was WandaVision born out of what we saw in the movies? Yes, but it felt very much like its own thing. As far as Sashir Zamata said, Jen's wanting to find the doctor. That makes sense, but then again, it was called Agatha All Along, right? So that's a separate storyline that I think you have to explore maybe in season 2. So it allows it to be open. I think the way she flew off at the end was perfect. It allows mystery, but shows you she's got her powers back. So, okay, now we're curious to see where this goes. I'm glad we didn't get to see Rio going through the portal. I mean, she's death. She can show up wherever the hell she wants. She doesn't have to go through a portal. So to me, it would have been overkill to show it. So all of it, I'd like the instincts, but in the end, I like that they made the decisions that they made because it kept it feeling like an insular thing that we could just enjoy. And I thought that ended up working out to the season's benefit. And so for me, I didn't have any problems with it, even though I appreciate the instincts with all the changes. Yeah, and the Hulkling thing, Michael, you nailed it. I mean, it would be so weird to just, oh yeah, by the way, me too. You know, that would have been so odd, and that might have been something they did a few years ago to try to shove too much in, as we saw with that Black Panther sequel. You're shoving too much in to try to make it all connect.
Yeah.
And the fact that you didn't have to do that here, I think, is kind of a gift. So
yeah, I don't disagree with that. And honestly, the thing that I think the most is the most interesting, and even though it wasn't explicitly stated in the show, but we've all seen the memes going around. It's the Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange from Multiverse of Madness, but she's the acolyte and he's Agatha all along, and she's like the acolyte's like, hey, I had some lesbian witches who sang a song and everybody hated it, and you had a bunch of lesbian witches and they sang a song and everybody loved you. I don't think that's fair. And so I do think it's very funny. And the idea that in the world of the acolyte, Star Wars fans really not happy with a birth with no father, but if Death and Agatha had that baby together, I think everybody's on board. Everybody's cool with it.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. All right, anything more on this, Mike, or shall we move on?
That's it. I think even the fact that we're having this discussion after the show ends shows that, as opposed to most Marvel shows and entertainment events of recent memory, this is one that I think is sticking with us, and I think that Marvel should take note of that and continue to make shit like this.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. All right, Shannon, let's go to you. What do we got, brother man?
We got some trailers. Our first one is the second look we're getting at the second season of Squid Game. So this one has a little bit more than that first teaser. And we get the idea that there's a little bit more going on in the game this time. I think we had sort of speculated that what is the impetus for the second game? Is this sort of a tournament of champions? And this teaser effectively answers that question, in that it is not, at least based off of the trailer, that Ji-hoon is the one saying, like, I have done this before, listen to me. And it introduces another aspect to the game where the contestants, even after some of them have been mowed down in bloody murder, they are given the option to do more games, to continue the games, to get more money. I don't know what this show is going to be, but it was just, the first season was just so compelling, and a lot of this is on the back of Lee Jung-jae. But I'm excited about this one, especially after this look. So, Mikey, why don't you take it away? What did you think of our second look at the second season of Squid Game?
I think they're doing it right. I think that this trailer introduced the question that we all want the answer to. I mean, he announces, I've played this game before. The question of, if you did it before, why would you come back, is stated. So what they did, and I think a really smart way, was they show us that they understand that this is the question we all want answered. Like, we're like, why on earth, after doing this, would you do this again? But they don't give us the answer.
Yeah.
And that is, we talk a lot about trailers, and this trailer didn't show me enough. This trailer gave away too much. I wish they hadn't had this thing revealed. And I thought this was the exact right amount of, hey guys, we know what you're wanting to know, and we're going to show you that this is a part of the story, but we're not going to give away too much. And I was like, this is the right amount. Like, we saw revisiting some of the games that we are familiar with. I imagine that we are going to see some things that we are unfamiliar with. And so I think they're doing the exact right balance of, we're going in to see Squid Game, between the season 1, between the reality series that they did. We all understand what Squid Game is. So give us what we want, but also surprise us and do some different things. And that seems like that is exactly what this is.
Johnny, would you sign up for a second round at Squid Game?
I got to tell you, I love this series. And it took me a while to come around and watch this finally, right? But I became a mad addict to the show. I've rewatched we've watched episodes numerous times. Not all of it, back to back, but certainly episodes, because the writing and the acting and the tension throughout, just so well done. The reality show was just as good in different ways, which I was really surprised by. And certainly we've got a Fincher one on the horizon. So what's an American approach to this going to be? It's going to be real curious to see, as if we're all not living in a Squid Game now. But this whole thing you see, I think, is also fascinating in the trailer, because not just only are they, and I'll pick up what Michael said, like, not only are they answering the meta question we all have, but the people in the game now, aren't we all driven now to be suspicious of just about everything? So it makes all the sense in the world to have people within the game question the guy who says he's coming in to help you. Wait a minute. Why are you here? Are you really here to help me or screw me over? You're already in that kind of suspicious of everybody mental state. You introduce someone who says, hey, I was in the game. I'm here to help you guys. You question going whether he's working with them or not. Are you working with the people who are trying to screw us over? So it adds way more conflict and way more tension that I think is going to be fun to explore. And what is he going to discover when he goes back through? Why has he been let back into the game a second time? What are they trying to figure out? So the fact that it adds this element here, I think, is genius throughout the whole trailer. So it excites me on that level, for sure. But the visuals, everything about it, it looks like they're just picking up with the quality where they just left off with that first season. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, the first season ends. It certainly seems like he's going after the makers of the game, and it doesn't look like, based off of this season, that he succeeded. But this holiday season, after you've watched throats get ripped out with Nosferatu on Christmas Day, Squid Game, the second season, comes out December 26th.
Yeah.
Our next trailer is another Netflix series, and this one is called Black Doves. This one stars Keira Knightley and Sam Wishaw. I mean, this is a classic spy story. Secret agent, undercover, is enjoying a normal life. People from the other aspect of her secret life come back and basically kidnap her guy. Keira Knightley out for revenge. Sam Wishaw comes in as the representative of the company who's basically assigned to help her out. In terms of spy shows, Keira Knightley is just a natural fit. Like that movie Domino that she did, it wasn't like the best movie, but she was fantastic. And I'm a big Sam Wishaw fan as well. So, Johnny, why don't we throw it over to you? What did you think of our first look at Black Doves?
Well, I mean, you mean Ben Wishaw, not Sam
Ben
Wishaw.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, three letters. I get it. And look, I'm not, you guys know our friendship. I'm not the biggest Keira Knightley fan. I'm not the biggest fan of Keira Knightley as an actress necessarily. That being said, though, I have been impressed with her when she goes out of the period stuff and into the modern stuff. What was the film a few years ago with Gavin Hood, Official Secrets, I think it was called, where there's the true story about her being on the inside with the attacks on Bin Laden and all that kind of stuff through the Britain point of view. I thought she was excellent in that movie. I thought it was a damn good movie as well. So, and I agree with you, Domino, she was good in Domino, even though I think that movie is just crazy on so many levels. But she can bring it when called upon. And this looks awesome. This looks right up my alley. Plus, I'm a big fan of Sarah Lancashire, being a fan of Happy Valley, that great series from the UK. If you guys haven't seen it, highly recommend that series. And bringing in Ben Whishaw, who I've been a fan of for quite some time, just like Shannon, and I'm sure Mike as well. So I like this combo. This actually works for me. When we've got all these Citadel shows coming out, which really aren't exciting to me, Black Doves looks like something fascinating. And normally I would bristle at Keira Knightley doing fight scenes, but she did a nice job in this trailer. So I'm 100% in to see what we're going to get here. And we could use a juicy spy one to jump into right now for sure. So I'm down.
Mikey, is this the season for Black Doves versus White Doves?
It might be. It might be. There's something that just really is appealing about the whole, I am living my life and I have this past, and then my past catches up to me, and surprise, I can fucking kill people and I'm like a mass murderer. Like, I don't know what it is about these, whether it's like dating all the way back to like The Long Kiss Goodnight, I mean, or last week,
Born
we
Identity.
did the trailer. What?
Oh, I was gonna say in Born Identity.
Yeah, well, Born Identity. But last week, the Ki Kwang movie that's coming out.
Yeah. Love Hurts. Yeah.
Love Hurts. There's something about seeing somebody in a very normal life, and then the story allows us to see them do these superhuman things. It's a different vibe than the superhero genre. It's this whole, any one of us could actually have this like hidden killer assassin inside of us, and this trailer just ticked all those boxes. So it looks super fun. It is definitely something I'm gonna check out. I realized like the bar to watching a Netflix movie versus the bar towards driving into a theater and like going to make time to see a movie is very different. And so there's a whole world of movies where if this was like coming in theaters, I would be like, yeah, maybe I'll check that out. But as soon as I see it's on Netflix, I'm like, oh yeah. That's like a Sunday morning, wake up, pour your coffee, and check this thing out.
Well, it might be a Sunday all day because this is actually a series. So there are 6 episodes.
I thought it was a movie. Look at that.
That could be a nice Sunday though.
By the way,
here nightly.
As someone who tore through Slow Horses recently, 6 episodes you can do in one night. I learned that really quickly.
That's a great series too. Also, good thing Joe Barton is the executive producer on this. He did Girl Haji, which if you guys haven't seen, that's one on Netflix as well. That's an interesting little series. And the director on this is Alex Kabazi, who's done a number of great episodes from The Crown. So this is a good team they're bringing together for this.
Well, we will get to see the work of that team on December 5th when all 6 episodes of Black Doves drops on Netflix. And this is the Netflix section of the episode apparently because our last series it's came out last week, but it's just so delightful, and I think it has the potential to make us feel good. And I think that's something some of us might need right now. It is the trailer for A Man on the Inside. So this is the new Ted Danson series from the creators of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, The Good Place. This is a senior citizen, a widower, who is kind of looking for some purpose later in life and ends up getting to be basically a spy. This series went through a couple of different title changes because it was shooting at Universal while I was at work, and I was seeing Mike Schur's Parking Space every day. And it was originally called A Classic Spy. There was another name, but I feel like A Man on the Inside really captures it. Based off of all of Mike Schur's previous work, this is gonna be funny. And it's going to have heart as well. And again, I feel like this is something that we might all really need. Mikey, what did you think of our first look at A Man on the Inside?
I mean, I was already sold on this because, to your point, Parks and Rec and Good Place are 2 of like my happy place series. Like as far as comfort shows that I will go back to over and over and over again that just sort of renew my faith in humanity. Parks and Rec and Good Place are like maybe like number 1 and number 2, like they duke it out for like that comfort series slot. And so I already was in on this, and then I saw the trailer and I'm even more in this. It's exactly what you said. I mean, Ted Danson, who knew that when he was on Cheers 1,000 years ago, that he'd still be going strong today. And if anything, stronger than ever. I mean, he's great in these roles, in these older roles. He really just has stepped into this age of his career really, really gracefully, and is such a joy to watch. I can't wait. I think this is going to be a ton of fun. And also just like when you look at the cast, everybody in this retirement home, I mean, you're just looking at this thing, you're like, this is an A+ comedy cast. Like from top to bottom, you look at everybody, there's just so many names. A lot of the faces that you're like, I know this person, I don't know who they are, but I've seen them in 1,000 things. They're just dotted throughout this trailer. So I'm 100% on board. I'm very excited.
Johnny, of the 3 of us who could end up living in assisted living one day and maybe could end up being the senior home spy, I think it's maybe gonna be you. So what did you think of your look into the future here?
Michael, they're poisoning our applesauce. No, I mean, I think this looked fantastic. Look, these films, sometimes you can dismiss them or series rather. I think it's a series. So you can dismiss them and be like, oh, well, what does this have to say? But it has such as Michael said, a sweet heart to it. You can tell from the trailer. And I liked the energy. And you're right about Ted Danson, and he just started a new podcast, him and Woody Harrelson, have a new podcast on the Conan Network where they're interviewing people. He had a wonderful interview with Quinta Brunson that I thought was very sweet about Abbott Elementary and other things. And so he's really embracing this older age. And look, all of us who like watched Ted Danson in the 80s are getting older. And we're getting close to that nursing homes. I got a while to go, but we're getting closer. And so enjoying him in another arena and his natural comedic instincts, but he's playing like a guy who actually is, he's not always on top of it. So I think there's an element and an energy that I really love. But he's having these really sweet moments. And the thing is, sometimes we get so caught up in entertainment that appeals to us from a younger point of view. It is so important to have entertainment that's a lot of fun, that also speaks to the older generation and their needs and their lives and what they're going through. And certainly there's elements of that throughout the whole trailer, being yelled at to get away from them, conspiracy stuff, storming out. Plus you have Stephanie Beatrice in this, which is great to see. As Michael said, so many great cast members that are a part of this. Carrie O'Malley, who I've seen in a million things. Stephen McKinley Henderson is fantastic in the trailer from what I saw as well. So there's so many great people involved in this to give it a good mixture of young and old energy. And what is the overall spy story? That's going to be really curious to see how it all plays out. I've never seen The Good Place, but Parks and Rec, we just recently started all over again because Lindley's never seen it. So I'm rewatching everything from the beginning with her, just falling back in love with that show. So I love that these people are involved with making this one. So
well, A Man on the Inside, it's going to be here quick. November 21st, A Man on the Inside, Ted Danson and Mike Schur, they're here to make us feel better.
All right. Well, there you go. Thank you, Shannon, for those trailers and our visit into the trailer park. We're going to take one more break, and after this, we're going to get into our big story. It's Simon Kinberg walking into the Star Wars universe. We'll be right back right after this.
Do 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 do.
All right, that's you bringing us back. All right, so we're back. There we go. All right, let's get into this thing. Let's not waste any time here. Simon Kinberg, that is the name on everybody's lips here. He is heading into Star Wars on an expansive deal to write and produce a Star Wars feature trilogy. Now, there's some contention here because Fleming over there, I think Deadline of Variety, is saying that this is the continuation of the trilogy. So a new sequel trilogy, it would be 10, 11, and 12, while Boris Kitt at The Hollywood Reporter is saying that it won't be a sequel trilogy. It'll be another trilogy that is different and not connected necessarily to the main trilogy. But either way, it is Simon Kinberg who has been signed here to be in charge of a new trilogy. And for those of you who don't know Simon Kinberg, I bring up to you a number of things. He was involved in Legion. He was involved in Sherlock Holmes, but he was also involved in X-Men Dark Phoenix. And so there's a spotty track record for him as a writer. It's a much more positive track record for him in multiple franchises as a producer or executive producer. So this is an interesting decision to do this, especially this week, to have this news come out. Now, Star Wars has not officially announced it. Lucasfilm has not officially announced this, but Simon Kinberg confirmed this on his Instagram. So, Michael, what are your thoughts? What's your reaction? What do you think this is going to be a sequel trilogy, or do you think it will be a separate trilogy? How is Ray involved in all of this? We have these standalone movies that are supposedly happening. Your thoughts?
All right. A couple thoughts. Simon Kinberg. Let's start with Simon Kinberg. Simon Kinberg, to your point, it's a spotty, look at, attached to a lot of things.
Yes.
And some of the things we really love and some of them we don't. The things where he is a writer and producer, he was a credited writer and producer on X-Men Days of Future Past. He was also a writer and producer on the Josh Trank Fantastic Four.
Yes.
So X-Men Apocalypse, less said about it, the better. Dark Phoenix, less said, the better. So, but he is also an executive producer on Star Wars Rebels. So he does have Star Wars experience under his belt. Now, how much of that was Dave Filoni? How much of that was Henry Gilroy? There were a bunch of people working on Star Wars Rebels. So how involved was he on the animated series? I don't know, but he was attached to it. He has put his toe in the Star Wars universe on a show that most people think is some of the best content that Star Wars has had in the Disney era. So I think that's worth noting. But it's a choice. It is a choice. He's someone who I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter today saying, how does this guy keep falling upwards? He's someone who is very attached to a lot of big brands in geek culture. And the name is not always a name that we associate with the most beloved things that we have. So not only, if this is all true, not only is Lucasfilm giving him a shot, but they're giving him 3 shots. Like, this is a trilogy. So on the 3 movies of it all, on the plus side, this is Star Wars learning what they did wrong with 7, 8, and 9. Giving one person the entire story of a trilogy, the person in question notwithstanding, is better than giving one person a movie, another person a movie, and then the first person a chance to take back everything the second person did in the third movie. It doesn't work. So giving one person an entire trilogy and saying, you get to tell this big story, is the better way to go. Do I think that this is episodes 10, 11, 12? Maybe. But I don't know that, I think the Skywalker saga either way is done. So if they're going to number them 10, 11, 12, fine. I don't think that means we're seeing a bunch of Force ghosts run. Like, I don't know what it means. I think either way, this is the next trilogy in the Star Wars universe. And so I think the only movie that it directly affects would be the Rey movie, which, as we already know, is apparently kind of a mess right now. Like, there's nothing about him doing this movie that means Mangold can't do his Origin of the Jedi movie. There's nothing about this movie and where it takes place in the Star Wars universe that really affects Filoni doing the Mandalorian and Grogu movie and potentially another movie that connects all of the different Disney Plus TV series, because those are different eras. The one that this would directly affect would be if this is going to be at the same time as in the same time period as the Rey movie. And even if it's not, if he gets to do a trilogy, it kind of hobbles the Rey movie anyway. Unless episodes 10, 11, 12 take place 300 years from now and we are just beyond everything. And so you can still tell a Rey movie that could get some sequels. That's one thing. But Star Wars can barely figure out what they're doing post Rise of Skywalker. I don't think they're going to try and tackle 2 time periods post Rise of Skywalker.
All right. Yeah. Shannon, this is originally from Michael Fleming Jr. at Deadline. Wanted to give credit. Boris Kitt followed up with his own on Hollywood Reporter, his own scoop on this. So where do you land on this? What do you think about Simon Kinberg? And do you think it's going to be a sequel trilogy or a standalone trilogy?
I mean, granted, this wasn't Lucasfilm or Disney who announced this.
Yeah,
but it's like another day, another Star Wars project is announced. There was a time where Simon Kinberg was kind of hot in terms of the geek world. I mean, after Days of Future Past, like, he was already, I believe, on Rebels at that point. And that he was possibly going to be, if memory serves, sort of the steward of the Fox Marvel films.
Yeah.
Like, there was going to be a Trank Fantastic Four X-Men crossover. That was something that had been discussed. But then Fantastic Four came out, and how much was he a part of what went wrong? Who knows? I mean, it sounds like Josh Trank was a big part of it. But then he's also credited with being on Apocalypse, and he wrote and directed Dark Phoenix. He also directed the 355, that Jessica Chastain movie. So the further his career has gone, the more kind of iffy projects he's been associated with. Now, making movies and TV shows, especially at that creative level, man, it's hard. Like, there are so many things stacked against you. So the fact that we get any good movies and good television series is great, because there are so many moving parts where so many things can go wrong. I do agree with Vogel that if you're going to do a trilogy, whether or not it's episodes 10 through 12 or if they decided to be something else, I think having that one main creative voice is the right decision. I mean, I think if Rian Johnson were to ever be able to come back and do his trilogy, I think I would probably like it more than Last Jedi, because it's his voice from beginning to end. So I think conceptually it's a good idea. Whether or not he's the guy, that remains to be seen. And at this point, I mean, who knows, outside of The Mandalorian and Grogu, who knows when/if we're going to see another Star Wars movie, because since Rise of Skywalker, there's been a lot of stuff announced and not a whole lot in theaters.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a name that gets you excited. I'm sorry. Unless you're Simon Kinberg's family members and friends, this is not a name that you go, oh, hell yeah, I can't wait to see what a trilogy from Simon Kinberg looks like. Oh, this is so great. This is exciting. And so to me, this is kind of a meh a choice in its approach. I mean, he did just do Deadpool and Wolverine. He's one of the producers of that with Sean Levy. We know that Sean Levy has written, or the rumor is that he's written a Rey movie, something he's working on there behind the scenes. Kinberg also just recently did the Mr. and Mrs. Smith series as a producer, which got some good responses from people. He did Sugar, which is one of Shannon's favorite new Apple TV shows overall. I don't know how many people see Invasion. I didn't see Invasion, but he was also part of the Agatha Christie stuff with Kenneth Branagh. He was a producer on all those films. So he's got a strong pedigree in multiple franchises, right? But I think this is a kind of a safe coach with a good record, but not a great record that you bring in to see what they can do. The one thing that I think speaks well of him is that he has a track record of landing the plane. Whether you like where he lands the plane is a separate conversation, or what he put on the plane, or what movie he showed on the plane. That's a separate conversation. But he does land the plane in multiple franchises. And for the last few years, as you guys have pointed out and very well said, like the idea that you make an announcement and we even see this movie is so just really spotty, the track record Star Wars and Marvel have had at times. So you look at the situation, okay, I see why you did it. It's a solid guy. But if you look at the writing, because as Michael said, producing is different than writing. So you look at the writing is not strong. That's not a strong case to make for Simon Kinberg, and that's unsettling. Producing wise is great, but writing is the question mark of it all. But here's the thing that's the next question. Here's the next, because that's my interpretation, but or my reaction to it. But here's the next question. What does this do for the standalone movies? What are we looking at? Daisy Ridley this week said, I'm really excited to see where Rey is going. I've heard about where we're going. This is very exciting. There's no fucking way they approve a trilogy without her involvement if this is going to be 10, 11, and 12. If they're going to do Rey essentially teaching the young new Jedi the new order of things, that makes sense as the start of a new trilogy, and that she becomes the Obi-Wan of the new trilogy, essentially guiding the new Jedi, which had kind of been inferred to be the movie that Sharmina Obaid-Chinoy was working on. Sean Levy and Simon Kinberg just did Deadpool and Wolverine. So to me, this opens the door that we might hear Sharmina Obaid-Chinoy being moved off the Rey film. The new script is the Levy mixture of maybe the new writer that's come in here, because they announced that there's a new writer coming in for the Sharmina Obaid-Chinoy film. Will this be a mixture of Levy stuff and her and their stuff to do a new movie? And will Rey, in essence, be like a Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor? And by that I mean she'll get her own trilogy, but she will be also part of essentially an Avengers trilogy, which would be 10, 11, and 12. So these are the thoughts that I'm having right now all around my head about all of this. And will we see the Mangold film? Are these one-offs going to get canceled now because they're going to focus on a trilogy? Gentlemen.
I love Star Wars, and everything you just said made me want to shoot myself in the face. Like it's just like I love Star Wars as much as anybody loves Star Wars, and even I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, just stop it.
Do you mean what I was saying or the announcement?
And like what you were saying makes sense. Everything you said made sense. It just was like I don't think any of us have the capacity or desire to see a new Star Wars trilogy and a Rey trilogy and have her jumping back and forth between all of them. Like, is there not enough Star Wars to Star Wars to sustain all that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. But like the big thing is, and as you were talking, the thing that really struck me, and this is where maybe Simon Kinberg, like everything you said about Simon Kinberg and the excitement level about Simon Kinberg doing a trilogy, you're not wrong. The reason he may have gotten it is because what they need right now is they need a big idea.
Yeah.
Rey starting a Jedi Order makes perfect sense given everything we know. She buried some lightsabers. She told an old lady her last name was Skywalker. Let her go make a Jedi Order. It makes sense. And I am completely not inspired. If you showed me a trailer of her training a bunch of Jedi and saying it's just like what Luke taught me, I'd go, okay. But I'm not excited about that. I need a big idea. The reason that Mandalorian was so great for Disney Plus is because we're going to make a Baby Yoda, in addition to being a consumer products home run, is interesting. The second that Din Djarin opened that thing and we all saw a little 50-year-old Yoda, we went, holy fuck, what the fuck is this? What does this mean? And we all got really excited because it was new. And so I think what maybe has happened is they're trying to do this Rey movie. We know that's not working. Mangold's going, like, Star Wars is great when they go to the past. So Mangold's like, I'm going to tell this origin story. Kathleen Kennedy's like, I love an origin story. Go do it. Dave Filoni's like, I'm going to make all these things come together and we're going to go through some Rebels characters in there. And you're like, great, go do it. But like what they're doing forward, they're just not landing it. And I think Kinberg maybe came in with a big idea.
Yeah.
He said, what if we did this? And it landed in the room the way Baby Yoda landed when we all watched Mandalorian and everybody said, wait a minute, what? Give him a trilogy. Like maybe that didn't happen at all. And maybe there's a bunch of other things, but it's like, what I hope is whether it be Simon Kinberg or who the fuck ever, somebody's got to come in with a big idea and everyone has to go, fuck, I never thought of that before. Let's do that.
God, I love your hopeful thinking. I love your hopeful thinking.
Oh,
Shannon, what do you?
I got no hope left this week. I'm just saying this is what they need to do.
Shannon, what do you think? Do you think this will be a trilogy with Rey involved and then Rey having her own movies on the side, like Iron Man and Thor, or what do you anticipate here?
I don't.
Sorry, and what do you anticipate for the one-offs too? Are we going to get Mangold? Are we going to get the other films that were announced?
Well, I mean, Mangold seems like conceptually one of the easier ones, in that it doesn't have to connect to everything else that's going on. That you get to tell a story from page one. Historically, them handing out trilogies has not produced any results because they gave one to Rian Johnson, they gave one to Benioff and Weiss,
right?
And again, Disney, Lucasfilm, they didn't announce this yet, so like who knows whether or not the ink is dry on those contracts. In terms of the one-offs, I mean, I have a hard time conceptualizing a Rey one-off and then a trilogy with Rey, and then also the Sean Levy Rey movie. I mean, my guess is whatever is going to happen, it's going to be some combination of the three. That all three of these ideas are not going to come to the screen. Like, and I think they like Daisy Ridley. I think they see the possibilities with the character. But I do agree with Vogel. Like, more of the same. That's what didn't work in Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, I mean the Mangold movie, again, and we may never see it, but the Mangold movie, just like Rogue Squadron, I'm like, that has a decent shot of happening because it's like you're telling this story. Mangold especially, because again, you're not having to service anything else. Right. I mean, of all of them, the one I want to see is the Lando movie because I just want to see Donald Glover again.
Yeah, and it may just be that like you're gonna get and it's maybe connected to why the rumors came out a couple weeks ago that like the Mangold movie was moved up. It might start shooting early next year because maybe in their minds, look, that's the easier one to do. We're not attached to all this other stuff. We can do that one and put that one out. Then we can spend more time developing the Rey movie because clearly it seems like, at least if I'm reading this in my own way, reading the tea leaves, that they want to spend more time getting the Rey movie right. Because maybe they want to tell a bigger story. So maybe the Rey movie is what launches us into the new trilogy. And then we have the new trilogy that comes out if that's the way they go about it. The Filoni thing, though, it starts to become jumbled with the Filoni thing. And that's where my concern comes. Yeah.
It's like, picture little Kevin Feige with his toy box. And Kevin Feige dumps all the toys out and he just lines them up. He goes, so this happened? And then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And you're like, great, I understand that. And then Lil James Gunn dumps his toys out, and he goes, this is going to happen. I'm going to take these 5 characters here, but I'm going to do a story that took place back here to explain this. I'm going to do an animated show that takes place here. And you go, okay, that's different, but I get what you're doing. This is a whole history of superheroes. And then Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni just dump their toys on the floor and go, what do you think? And you're like, well, what is this? And they're like, it's stuff. And you're like, why don't I care about this? And they're like, because look. And you're like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, it just drives me crazy because, like, you just got all these things happening and you're like, no, we're going to do the origin of the Jedi. And then we got this big adventure that happens between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. It's going to explain a bunch of stuff and Grogu's there. So you're going to love it. And then Rey's going to do some things. And you're like, what are we even doing? What is this?
Yeah, and then they bring all their friends in to come and sit down with the things and try to figure out what they want to do with it. Oh, that's a good idea. No, let's stop this and let's do it. We'll move them over here, because, man, yeah. Do you think the Simon Kinberg, though, do you think because he has a track record of landing the plane, do you think this now might get certain writers and directors to take a second look that maybe wouldn't want to walk into the Star Wars franchise with all the drama and toxicity and issues with it? Would they be a little bit more willing to take a meeting or to and please, people, we are past the idea where if Star Wars calls you, you come running. I think it's a different situation now. So you think Kinberg helps with that?
I think if Star Wars calls you, you still come running. Despite everybody saying it's the worst place, it's horrible, like you can't get anything, like Star Wars calls you and you're like, yeah. Also, the industry is in a state right now that, like, honestly, if Bar Wars calls you, you're like, I'm in. I don't know what it is, but I'll take it. Like, it's like you'll take anything. But I don't. But to your point, I don't think that, like, if you weren't inclined to go do a Star War, I don't think Simon Kinberg being attached to it makes you go, well, now let me rethink this. I got to be a part of it. That's why the only thing that I can think of here is that, given his experience on Rebels, given his knowledge of one of the more popular areas of the Star Wars universe, he came in and said, we got to do this in the movies. Because, like, Rebels, and again, Dave Filoni deserves a lot of credit for Rebels, obviously. Henry Gilroy, who was the EP on it, deserves a lot of credit for it. So I don't know how much Kinberg's involvement was, but if he comes in and goes, guys, Rebels is beloved because of X, Y, and Z. So I want to do a trilogy that does X, Y, and Z. I think the reason he got the job is he had something creatively that they were like, yeah, we haven't figured that out yet. And that seems right. Like, that's the only thing that I can think of that would all of a sudden give him 3 movies that are potentially 10, 11, and 12. Yeah. Because they're not going. Because Boris Kitt is very clear that he thinks it's not that. But I think what we're hearing is that, well, what I'm hearing, and I'm sure, and also what Fleming heard, is that it seems like that's where they're going. Is that they want to launch a new trilogy because that's where the money is. A new trilogy is where the money is, right, Mike? That makes all the sense in the world. Shannon, that makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? And also, and this is where, to your point about the Rey movie, kind of maybe being a little dead in the water, like. Listen, I don't love the new trilogy. I don't love 7, 8, 9. But if you're going to do a new trilogy, it should be about Rey. It should be about Finn. Like, these are the characters that you created. And we talk about this a lot. Like, even if stuff doesn't work, we talked about this with people not loving the Flood at the end of the Batman and feeling like it was a little too much. But they stuck with it, and it really paid dividends for them in the Penguin. And I think the same thing here. Like, I don't know what you do to make Rey starting a new Jedi Order super interesting and make me go, holy shit, I really care about this. But that is what you should be doing. And if you have a trilogy that really goes, this is the journey that she's going to go on, and then you have this Rey movie standing by itself over here that they can't quite get the script working on, you dump that script and you put Daisy Ridley in the trilogy that you know works or that you think is going to work. Yeah. And just to confirm this is his Instagram. This is what he posted a long time ago in a galaxy not so far away. I was a little kid who wanted to tell stories because I saw a movie called Star Wars. Cara Jade Myers responded here. Congrats. And Kumail Nanjiani, of course, who was a member of the Star Wars universe there, responding as well. So there are people who are excited about this, people who might want to work in this Star Wars with Simon Kinberg. So essentially, although Lucasfilm hasn't confirmed it, this seems like he's confirming it in essence for Lucasfilm. So you wouldn't go out on your own as a director and confirm something that isn't actually happening. So it is happening. Now we start to wonder if it will happen and who will be involved and what's the overall story. And I think they do have to come out and be like, okay, this
That's the thing that's frustrating is they cut, well, we'll drop the movies when we feel like dropping the movies. Like, no, you've made this decision. How does it connect to all the other movies? You got to make an announcement. Sorry about that. And I think there's a Brazil D23 happening, right? Like this weekend. So maybe we'll get some more information. They've dropped news there before, so we will see. All right, anything more to say on this, or shall we wrap up the show here, gentlemen?
I hope they figure something out. I need something. Give me something, guys. I need something to keep me going.
I need something to hold on to. God damn it. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate you all madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, I have less room. It is at MK2. And if you'd like to follow Mr. Roca, it is at The Roca Says.
Mikey.
Go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. What do you think of the Penguin? What do you think of Agatha All Along? What do you think of Star Wars? Let us know below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you all. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Remember, we will have a Penguin finale review coming up soon. We'll announce that and put it on our social media so you guys can join us or watch it when we get it done there for you all. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!